Welcome to another episode of the Know Your Power podcast. I am your host, Juliarene.
And Kendall Graboff.
And today, guys, we have Liv Wickedly here.
Again,
for the second time. She is a intimacy, spiritual, and relationship empowerment coach who guides you to conscious love, social intimacy. No, not social, soulful. Well, probably social.
Yeah.
And
all
authentic
intimacy.
expression. She's also one of the trainers of the Journey to Nobody training that you guys have heard me talk about. Let's welcome Liv to the podcast.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such a warm welcome.
All of the things.
I just want to say the last podcast you were on, you were first guest in-house ever.
Mhm.
I have listened to that podcast like at least once a week
Oh, amazing.
since we filmed
Wow.
it. I feel like I walked away from that one and I called my mom, I called like two of my friends and I was like, holy shit. I was like, that conversation, like I needed that. I needed that change in perspective. And for those who haven't listened to that one, it is about switching kind of from the victim mindset to the creator mindset. And I didn't even feel that I was in a victim mindset, but it still just like pushed me in even further into creating the life I want to create. So
Dope. Thanks,
yeah,
Kendall. That's awesome.
I love it. Like
Yeah.
big advocate for you, big advocate for that podcast. I
Yes.
loved it.
Yeah, guys, if you haven't listened to that, please go back and listen to that. One of the biggest reasons that we have Liv on for a second time is not only because she's a really good friend of ours, but people wanted her on again. And
wow.
you were one of our most top viewed
People
podcasts.
being me. I
listened
kept
to.
requesting it.
Yeah, like when I go look at our views, yours was one of the, I think it's like top 1, 2 out of all the ones
Oh
that
my
we've
God.
done.
Wow. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Not for my ego or anything, but because like this stuff that I'm sharing and that I'm teaching, like it's just going to make your life better. It's just going to make everything so much better. And so I feel really grateful and excited that we're in a day and age where people are receiving it and they're hearing it.
Yes.
And more importantly, understanding it.
Mhm.
Right. Because like it's not like I'm the first person who's ever shared this information in the entire
Mhm.
world, but we're getting to a place where people are more conscious and people are being a lot more present and aware of the reality of their situation instead of living in their head of how it should be. So I'm really excited to hear that your listeners are woke.
Yeah, you have to be ready to receive info
Yeah.
like that. Because if
Yes.
you could preach it all day, if it's the wrong person or they're not ready
Yes.
to change, they're not gonna intake anything you're saying.
No, in fact, until pretty recently, most of my life, I've really pissed people off and they've been very confronted by these truths that I feel I'm speaking. It's very easy for your ego to get flared up when somebody points out a place where it's in control and you're not.
Mm.
So the ego gets a little defensive because it doesn't want to get fired from its job.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Hey,
Yeah, it's like, hey man, I've been doing this forever. Don't you fire me?
I love that so much.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know that Liv does so well, and I think that people who listen to the previous episode can already tell, is that she can bring the most complex things down to something that's so simple. I always like to tell her that she dumbs it down for me so that I'm like, oh, I get that. Because in this space, people use a lot of words and they use a lot of fluff and they kind of forget the human aspect of connection. And it's just like, let's just talk like regular people. And that's why people resonated with that podcast. People resonate with your coaching and all your friends do too, because you are upfront and you are you and you're undeniably you. And I think that's what most of us appreciate from you because you do it in a way that doesn't, in my opinion, that doesn't offend, but what's the word? It empowers you to, step up. And I know that's one of Liv's ultimate powers that I think she has is that she helps you level up. She makes you realize that you
Agreed.
either are being the victim that you're not, or making excuses, or that you know you should do this thing. And Liv's like, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I mean,
okay.
like I said, I wasn't walking away being like, oh, I've been in the victim mindset and she proved that to me. I more so was like, oh, I can be even better. And I think
Yes.
that's what creating discussion around mental health in general is just like, hey, you can always improve. Like, even if you think you're the most like self-realizing, like spiritual person ever, there's still someone doing more and you can always look up to those people.
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually a really good segue into the topic because what you're saying about how I deliver things, like it's not like I was born and all of a sudden like I was just explaining things super clearly.
You weren't?
I know.
Liv's
I know
3 years old.
So articulate.
I'm like, Mom, this is how you should be processing this emotion.
Imagine.
Yeah, and that would be fucking wild. I'm sure there are some really brilliant
It's going to be your
out
children.
there.
That's going to be Zach's child.
Yes.
And it's going to be really annoying. which will also probably be my child.
I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I actually went through a period of time of offending a lot of people constantly. And I would get stuck. I kind of went from just being myself, being boisterous, being loud, to really shutting down and getting stuck in, I need to say everything exactly correctly all the time. And then that led to me just not speaking at all.
Yeah.
And that's probably been my biggest come up and growth point, especially the last few years since my separation, is finding my voice again and trusting myself, and also giving myself permission to make messes. And that perfect is a concept, right? And so if it's a concept, I can make perfect mean whatever I want it to mean. It doesn't have to be this prison where everything has to be just so. And the big thing that I notice people get attached to here is an outcome. They judge whether they did it well or correctly or in alignment with themselves based on other people, or whether they got awarded or validated. And so they're leaving all of their power outside of them. And it's a really, really tough loop to get out of, because you've got the evidence in your environment that you suck. And so then you double down on believing you suck, and then you stop taking risks. And that's where we really get stuck in this like mediocrity and complacency. And so our ego likes to justify being complacent and mediocre by saying, well, I'm just a perfectionist. I just care about doing things really well.
This is me.
This is me too. Like,
Yes.
I'm speaking from experience. It's like, I'm not on a high horse at all. I knocked myself off that goddamn horse because staying on the horse was preventing me from really living my life. And I actually have a really beautiful metaphor that I've been using with my clients to explain things. And that metaphor is really important and powerful because our subconscious really only thinks in images. It's not literal. So I like to give people imagery so that they can kind of relate what they're doing to something that's funny. I really like to do funny things. Well, humor's a life raft, in the middle of the storm,
fully.
For sure. So I always like to ask people, okay, when you were a baby and you were first born, what were you capable of doing? What could you do?
Nothing.
Not that much.
No, you can
Cry.
You can breathe. You can cry. You can poop. You can eat. This is pretty much all you can do. You sleep and you lay there, right? And you can't even burp for yourself. Your parents have to burp you, right? So that's how you started. Then you kind of started learning how to lift your head up and get your head up, right? Oh, now my neck's building strength. Now I can lift my head up. Then you start kind of working on your core because you want to roll over. Who wants to just lay on their back for forever, right? So you start working on rolling over. And then now all of a sudden you can roll over and you can lift your head up. Oh, well, now your arms and feet have some things that they can start doing, right? And then you start crawling. Then eventually you get to standing up, then you get to walking, then you get to running. And now all of a sudden you're a mobile human. But that doesn't happen all at once. And can you imagine if babies had an ego that said, I can't stand up or walk or run unless I do it perfectly the first time? We would all just have a bunch of humans laying on their back.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we would have no humans because you'd all just lay on your back and you wouldn't do anything to procreate.
We'd be little blobs.
You'd be little blobs, right? So what I like to remind people is if you could learn how to do all of that, you can learn how to do anything. The only thing that gets in your way of getting to where you want to go is you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all a fear, and it's all a fear in our own head. No one else is even judging you for trying certain things. We kind of judge ourselves before we even go for those things.
Yeah. And the truth is, if somebody does project judgment at you, that's their own self-judgment, right? That's their fear. And you're confronting their fear by standing up and doing something. I like to think about shadows and projection in a particular way. So if imagine you're on the sidewalk and it's a perfectly sunny day, if you look in one direction, you can see your shadow right on the ground. And then if you look pretty much anywhere else, it's just sunshine. We get stuck staring at our shadow and we think there's no light there, right? And we're just staring at the shadow and making that our reality. When the truth is, if you turn like a quarter of an inch to the right, there's light there, right? And then if you turn around enough and you go, oh, the sun. Oh, the sun's coming down on me. I'm casting a shadow. That's my shit. That's not somebody else's shit. If you just look up around a little bit, there's just more light. And so I think this whole idea of perfectionism is like 0 to 100. And people have a lot of pride in being 0 to 100. I just do everything so hard all the time.
Yeah.
That was me for so long with fitness.
I really think that we are starting to grow out of the society of like the grind. Like, as most things fade away, I feel like every kind of certain couple of years, there's like a thing that's just like really in.
Mm-hmm.
So the previous couple of years was grind. Like, doesn't matter how much you sleep, just I'm thinking entrepreneur like or fitness wise, just grind, get it done, don't care about self-care. Now we're moving into a phase where it's like sometimes over setting boundaries, sometimes doing too much self-care, things like that. And I feel like
we're kind of finding the balance.
Yeah, we're kind of trying to find like the balance between these two. And I'm very much the person that's like, if I'm not doing everything, then I'm not good. I have to be doing all of the things. Like I genuinely worry for when I become a mother because of how much I love to do during the day. And I know I'm going to have to be okay with not being the perfect mom that's like, oh, what do you mean? I woke up at 5 a.m. I made my kids breakfast. I got my workout in. I took them to school. You can't do that. Like, I know that I'm not going to be able to be that person.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, maybe not at first because you're a new mom, right? And you've got kinks to work out. You've never done this shit before, right? And there needs to be grace and compassion for self so that there's room for you to mess it up so that you can go, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? What can I change? I really like to think of myself as a life scientist, right? I am always experimenting in my own life, right? I'm like, oh, I want this. I want to go this direction. I don't know how to get there because I've never been there before. And there's no map or GPS to get you to the places you want to be in your life. We have other selves that we can look up to who have done their own version of that. We can try the things that they suggest. But the problem is we get into our heads a lot. And we tell ourselves we're taking action when really all we're doing is thinking about it and we're talking about it. But
I'm a victim to that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes. Yeah. We all do this, right? But the trick is to actually be about it. To be about it is to take risks, make messes, be imperfect, do it out loud in front of other people, and be willing to be wrong. There is so much gift in being wrong because the truth is, if you knew everything you were supposed to know to be where you were now, and it's not working, wow, that's self-defeating. That sucks. There's no possibility there. But if it's possible you're wrong and you actually don't know, well, now a whole world of possibilities open
now
up
you get
to
to learn.
Now you get to learn. That phrasing is very, very important. You have the privilege and the honor of learning something new, of growing, of transforming, of stretching. And I think, and I'm sure this will resonate with a lot of people on this show who listen to this show because most of them are into fitness. That's how they got into following you guys. And so think about when you first started lifting weights or whatever your fitness preferences are. Did you know how to lift all the weights perfectly? Were you automatically, benching 220? Is that where you started, just being perfect and ripped? No, you had to build, right? You had to make some mistakes. And I'm sure I've gotten injured multiple times because I wasn't lifting correctly. I've had to, I'm sure you guys have this experience where you think you're building strength and then you realize you're lifting wrong and you have to go back and reset. And then you have to go down to the lower weights. And then you're like, oh God, I hate this. Yes. I get into these spaces where I'm like watching the other people, what they're lifting. And I'm like, damn, I feel like a little pussy. I'm lifting less. But the fact is you are where you are. And your next step is your next step. But if you never take that step because you want to get to the finish line all in one leap, you're mediocre and complacent, right? You're not actually perfect by any stretch. You're living in an illusion that you are.
And even what you're saying, like that idea of where I should be is all being compared to other people. Like they also had to start with the 5 pounds. They also had to start the business from ground zero. Like some people are like handed more than others, but you still like everyone's just figuring it out. And I feel like that helped me the most because I definitely was like such a perfectionist, especially with like the grind theory of like, I have to be on my shit like 24/7. Like wake up at 4 a.m., do everything I can, like knock on doors to get business, whatever. And then I started falling in love with that process of trying to learn, of failing, because it feels more rewarding. If you're handed everything and you like immediately succeed in whatever you're trying to do, it's not that rewarding. You got there so quickly. But if you're struggling and you're grinding and you're really working towards something for years and years, and then you get it, like that feeling is way more rewarding than being perfect ever will.
Yeah, exactly. And so something that I think you've pointed out here that's really, really important. We have gotten into this habit. So grind culture, hustle culture. We've gotten into this habit of delaying reward. So we don't allow ourselves to feel joy or to be happy or excited while we're in the work, because we are so attached to the outcome, and we believe that the outcome reflects whether we did it correctly or not. The problem with that, and I just learned this about the human brain like last week, so I'm stoked to actually have a good reason, like a logical, physiological reason why people need to actually learn to love the work. When we do that, we actually delay the release of dopamine in our mind, right? And dopamine is really what our brain is chasing, right? When we're trying to find these successes, that's what we want. We want that hit of that joy, that euphoria, that good feeling. But whenever we delay and we only do things for reward, we automatically make the journey itself miserable. And dopamine actually controls our perception of time. So if you're not releasing dopamine in your brain, it's taking forever.
Yes.
And it causes this loop where you're so focused on the future, but the future isn't the present. And so where you are right now feels terrible. It feels bad. The trick is to actually love the work while you're in it and love the journey, right? And we've heard that before. Like people say that all the time, but there's your physiological reason why it actually doesn't work to do it. You're not using your avatar, your brain, your nervous system the way it's designed to be worked.
Yeah. I mean, like since this is the case, it's like, why wouldn't you do this? Because think about it, like logically, would you rather be happy? I always like to use prepping for a bodybuilding show as a reason, or maybe you're getting a promotion and you're waiting till that date, or it's your wedding. There's that buildup. And a lot of times we hear this from competitors, myself included. Maybe when you're getting a job that you really want, or you're planning a wedding, they don't remember any of the journey that got them to that one point because they weren't there.
They
were spending so much time in the matrix of it. They're in the future thinking about, oh, this is what it's going to be like. This is what I'm going to wear. This is what my body's going to be like. Or they're thinking about the past and being, oh, I should have done this. I could have done this. This might have been better. And you're not experiencing the actual joy of where you're supposed to be, where your feet are planted. This is the hardest thing for me to ever do, is to be where my feet are planted. And would you rather have 4 months of joy, or would you rather have that one day?
Yeah.
Most people would say 4 months.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is beautiful because that was something that when we were in the coaching container together, you did your first show, and when it was over, you crashed. You had a big depression slump.
And so many people do.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's pretty normal for people at their first show, right? And that depression slump came from exactly that experience you're describing, right? You were so focused on that day, and that day lasted how long? And you were on stage for how long?
It was the quickest show ever because it was right after COVID. So there wasn't that many people that signed up. It was so fast.
Yes.
And I blacked out. I don't really remember any of it. I don't remember what people said to me. I don't really remember who came. I remember that Liv came because I can hear her screaming from all the way out of the stage, and I have a video of it. But yeah, it's sad to me because there's so much time lost in the most important aspect of getting to the things that you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing that's really helped me here, presence is really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And presence is crucial, one, to your enjoyment of your life, but it's crucial to creation, because the only place you can truly create is in the present moment. You can't create from the future. It doesn't exist. And you can't create from the past. It's not here anymore.
Yeah.
So the only place you have any power is where your feet are planted, right here, right now, in this moment. So all the choices you make, all the tiny little choices you're making right here, right now in front of you, that is what adds up to the end goal or the end result. Yeah. So if you're in the future and you're bypassing and missing all the little choices that you've made, that's how we get to the end of it. And there's a big mess there. Yeah. Right? We've bypassed our own truths, or we mistreated somebody else to get where we wanted to go. And now we feel like crap because it's not actually a reflection of who we really are. Or we were just so fucking focused on the anxiety of the whole thing that we were miserable the whole time. Yeah. We get to the end and then we want to quit because it's like, what did I really get out of this?
This is why women, like during their wedding days, they are not really happy because they're stressed about all of the things that they feel like they need to do, and they can't enjoy their day.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good analogy, because I feel like so many people do focus on like the perfect Pinterest wedding, and it's like I've watched, I mean, it's mostly like movie shows, like YouTubers, whatever. But like marriages, or I guess pre-marriages, sometimes fail because they start resenting each other, because you're like, I don't fucking care what color the napkins are. Like, get over it. It doesn't have to be that perfect. Like, how about we just like celebrate love? Like, that's what that day is about. And I feel like that's such a good analogy, and you can use that for anything. Like, why are you so focused on this nitty gritty detail being so perfect when it's just keeping you from enjoying the end goal anyway?
Yeah. Very well, we all rely and are under the misconception that the circumstances are what make us happy. But here's another analogy I've been using with people. When you go to a party and you're having fun, is the room supplying the fun? Who's making it fun? Mm-hmm. You are, right? Your choice to engage, with other selves, your choice to have fun and create that fun. The room itself is not doing anything. The music isn't doing anything. You can have someone sitting in a room where everybody else is having fun and they're miserable. And that's by choice, right? So I think it's really important for all of us to remember that whatever it is you want to experience it, you already are that thing. And to be sitting in, so it's actually a negative experience to say, I want, because it implies you don't have, right? So I want freedom. I want joy. I want love. You are all those things. You create those experiences, and you can create them anywhere you are. I mean, we've all seen children sitting in a room playing with like boxes and paper clips, and they're having a fucking blast. It's just the best time of their lives. And then I could sit there and go, well, this is stupid. And now I've made a choice. I've made a choice to create a miserable experience versus a joyful, happy experience. So I've started replacing, I'm a big proponent of being very mindful of the way that I speak to myself and the way that I speak to others, because words cast spells, right? And more importantly, they're really casting spells and feeding your subconscious what you believe you need to survive. Subconscious is very basic. It just wants to keep you alive. So whatever you tell it to do, it's gonna do that for you. So this is why, like, I made this suggestion, but instead of using the word should, use the word could. Should implies you have no choice. Could implies that this is an option, but there are also other options. So instead of saying I want freedom, choose freedom. I choose freedom. I choose joy. I choose fun. I choose presence, instead of saying you want these things, because then it's always distancing you from them.
It creates like a longing for it, even though it's something that you want. And in my opinion, I feel like it pushes it so much further away. Like, I am a big proponent of the words that we use when we write out goals or when we speak to ourselves. And I realized that I had been doing that for a long time. And then I realized yesterday morning that I had all my goals written down. I write the same goals down every single morning because I'm very big on seeing it. And it's like a part of my being. And I wrote, I will have, I will have, I will have, I will. And I went, oh crap, how did my brain do this again? It went back to the I will have instead of I do have. And luckily I write so neat that I put a big line down the will.
Yes.
And it was just, I have blah, blah, blah. I have blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, all right. Well, now I know.
That works.
Yeah. No, that's exactly correct. Right. And there is actually something, so that desire you have to like write it down on paper and to see it, that is actually seducing your subconscious. You can hypnotize yourself in that way. That's why journaling, every self-help anyone tells you to journal, and people are so resistant to do it. You're resistant to do it because your ego is trying to keep you the same, man.
It's also trying to make you do it perfectly.
Yes.
Like, there's a perfect way to write. There's a perfect way to write your goals. It's like, just write it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Brain dump it.
Yeah.
I just started journaling again, and like already like 4 days in, feel huge difference. I feel very much more like in tune with myself and my goals. And like, I lost that for a little because I wasn't writing it down. I am a visual person.
Samesies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit, because we were talking a little bit on the lines of perfectionism and how it's leaving you mediocre. So there's one thing that I always say is that perfectionism is actually procrastination in disguise. So I kind of want you to speak to that in the sense that when we're longing for something to be so perfect or so right or look like how he does it or how she does it, that there's actually no action that ends up being done because we're wanting it to be a certain way.
Yeah, so that's how I relate to perfectionism as well. I think it was Mel Robbins. I think she calls perfectionism fancy procrastination.
Fancy procrastination.
Yeah, yes.
True.
So that's how I also relate to it, and I can just tell you, and this is so relevant because I caught this loop in my fitness journey. So I can share that in my own personal experience. Yeah. So actually, when I used to have a podcast called Self-Aware Millennial, and I interviewed this woman. I think her name's Sam Brown. She's from Australia. And she coaches women on perfectionism and getting out of it because everybody has their version of perfectionism, but women are the worst about it, especially Western women.
Yes.
Because of all the standards we have been conditioned and groomed to feel like we need to live into. So she specifically coached on that. And I learned so much from that interview with her. I just learned so much about myself. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing that too. Thank you. So what I started to realize as I was like contemplating her perspectives, I started to realize I was applying this idea of perfectionism to my fitness journey. So I would try something for a period of time. You know, at first, maybe it was like those cycling classes. I used to love those like soul cycle style stuff. You know, it's fun because you're dancing and whatever. It doesn't really feel like exercise, right? When I was doing that and I was going consistently and I was going because I enjoyed the class, I loved my body. I loved how I felt, all of these things. I ended up burning out though, because I just was doing way too much and I wasn't being moderate with it. But that experience was positive. Then when I got out of it and I started trying to do other things, it was like, I had to figure out how to do it exactly the right way. And I needed to be producing results like this, right? And then when those results weren't happening the way I thought that they should happen, I would spiral and I would get into my head and I would, start getting into internal conflict, right? And then I would be like, well, this isn't working because XYZ, right? Outcome. Right. And I'm just sitting in this energy of like 0 to 100, which is really that's a version of perfectionism, right? The 0 to 100. And then all while this is happening with my fitness journey, I'm like, doing marathons and running and then falling off of that, and then doing triathlons and then falling off of that, and then buying a Peloton and then falling off of that. Like I tried so many things and I would just fall out of it and then get fat again and then go back into it and then get fat again. It was just like this ongoing loop. And I kept getting so attached to the result that I missed something very important. Consistency. I wasn't being consistent, and I wasn't being consistent because I wasn't perfect, because I didn't look like the girls on Instagram who were doing those things. I was fat according to me, or my proportions weren't right, or I didn't have her genetics, or whatever my story was about myself. So I took like this step back and I looked at over the course of those 10 years, although I wasn't consistent, I never gave up. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, I've never quit on myself. I keep trying. I keep showing up to this. Whoa, that settled me down. And then from there, I was like, okay, what if I shift from needing to produce a result to just needing to show up? What if I just show up, and if all I do is 5 minutes of stretching, I did something that day? And so I shift my perspective from needing to produce a result, right, the perfectionism, to just needing to do something, anything. Didn't matter what it was. Stretch, yoga, walk into the gym, walk right out of the gym. The point is, I got up and I did something moving in that direction.
Your intent was there.
Yeah, so I shifted my focus from the finish line to where I am right here, right now. Yeah. And that changed everything. You see where I'm sitting in front of you now today. Like I did your fitness challenge, and my whole, I didn't care what my outcome was. Yeah. I said, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do everything on that plan. I'm going to do it every single day, and the outcome will be the outcome. Well, I think I smoked everybody in that challenge. I think I did better than everybody by quite a large margin.
She won.
Yes. And it was because I just showed up every day. That's all I did. I just showed up, and I didn't put any pressure on myself for that to mean anything other than fuck yeah, Liv, I showed up. Yeah. So before, I was stuck in this like complacency and mediocrity. And even though it looked like I was grinding on the outside, and I just listed a bunch of different shit that I did. I did triathlons. I did half marathons. I did beach body. Yeah. I even was in their MLM and selling their stuff. Like I did all of these things. And from the outside, it looked like I was just doing the most, and it looked like I was grinding, and it looked like I was a hustler. But I wasn't producing anything of actual value for myself. I was running myself down, and I was being mediocre as shit. Boop, flip it the other way. I'm here right now. What can I do today? And literally, like, you can just start one step at a time. Like, okay, I'm going to put my workout clothes on. 9 out of 10 times when I put those on, I'm like, yeah, I can make it to the gym,
Yeah,
right?
right?
Like, yeah,
Literally.
I can go on a walk right now. Yeah, I can turn on yoga with Adrienne right now. I can do something because I put my clothes on.
What gave you that switch of realizing that you were just, not saying you were procrastinating, but that you weren't getting the outcome you wanted? What made you realize, okay, I should start focusing on the step in front of me instead of this end goal?
Yeah, well, in that interview with Sam, she was talking about one of the paradigms that we kind of get stuck in, again, is that we're so focused on the outcome. We're not actually present here with what's in front of us now. And we think about things and we talk about things, but it's very easy to miss the actual doing of the thing.
And we think that since we're thinking about it and thinking about it, that we're actually doing things that are moving us forward. But then you just get caught in overthinking this thing and you don't produce any results.
Dude,
You don't
this
make
is
steps
me
forward.
With YouTube right now.
And every day I'm just like, start it, start it.
Years I've wanted to do YouTube. I used to do YouTube videos when I was like 16, 17, and I deleted all of them because I didn't deem them as perfect. And I haven't started yet because I want the editing and the lighting and my camera to be perfect. And I want to know exactly what topics I'm going to hit. And that's like, this is resonating with me because that is the one thing I am very much so procrastinating. And I'm writing YouTube ideas and I bought a camera, these little steps that are still not like, just turn on the camera and film.
Yeah.
Like that's the part I'm missing.
Yes, exactly. So that's, she called my attention to that. And then when we were talking about that, she was like, what this ends up producing is a bad attitude, right? Because again, you're delaying that dopamine release. So you don't have the things in your brain that make it bearable to do hard work. So you're running on exhaustion and you're kind of running on burnout. We are all way more burnt out than we realize.
Yes.
Most of us are moving so quickly and we don't destimulate ourselves. We're on our phone all the time. We're watching TV all the time. We're working all the time. We're socializing all the time. We don't actually destimulate ourselves, calm down, get back to a restful space, and then wake up full of energy the next day. So we're not taking care of ourselves the way our bodies are truly meant to get taken care of. And we're also fucking up our nervous systems by not choosing to be present and joyful in the moment, right? We're not in gratitude for what we do have. We're in a lack of gratitude for what we don't have. And this produces a really bad attitude. And this produces a paradigm of nothing you do is good enough. Your self-worth is crap, right? So you're just sitting on the left side of, you're staring at your shadow, essentially. So when she pointed that out, I was like, oh my God, my attitude does suck. Every time I come to this space, I'm really kind of punishing myself and I'm coming at it from there's something wrong with me. And so when she said that, I kind of was like, well, what would it look like if I came at it as if there was something right with me? What if I focused on what's good? And that's where I kind of started to see in my own life, I'm not actually doing it. I'm talking about doing it. I'm thinking about doing it. I'm sort of going on these sprints of time where it looks like I'm doing it, but the actual work is to show up in the present moment for me, not against me, not chasing anything.
And that is actually perfect.
That is perfect. And that gets you to a point where now there's really no effort that I have to put into maintaining what feels like a very healthy and I would say sexy body. I love how I look. I love how I feel. It's very easy for me to make it to the gym because I'm doing it because I love it, because I like taking care of my body, because I recognize the benefits of doing it in this present moment. I'm not chasing anything. It's just a byproduct that I end up looking the way that I really enjoy looking.
I love that. I feel like I'm on a very similar switch where when I was competing really often, I was always in prep and always being so hard on myself, never appreciating my workouts. I was only there to step on stage. I was only looking a certain way for the show day. Like I would wear big hoodies. I didn't like how I looked until like 1 week out. And now I'm just loving my workouts. And I'm like, my body is, I don't know. I feel like it's almost like your mind and body start aligning.
Yes.
Where I'm literally just there mentally for myself and my body's like rewarding me and starting to look better and feel better and do the things that it wasn't doing when I was being so hard on myself.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
that's a really good way to put it.
That was actually something I've noticed about you, Kendall, is like when we first met, when you weren't prepping, you were really struggling with like intense amounts of weight gain, right? And now, like every time I see you, you looking fire, and you're not in prep all the time, but
I'm
you just
eating
look
whatever
amazing.
I want.
Yeah,
It's great.
Yes, and that a lot of that people underestimate the power of their mental energy and the power of the hypnosis they put themselves under. So if you have a bad attitude because you're delaying your rewards and you're not enjoying your life now, that bad attitude is going to dictate your whole life. And so you're going to tell yourself you're an ugly flat blob, and your body's going to go, okay, if that's what we are, if that's what you say, sure, I am. And it will, well, you've got more cortisol in your system. You've got, your adrenals are fatigued and fucked. And now you're holding on to extra weight. You're holding on to extra water. It does work that way. You are that powerful. This is what I was saying the last time. You create your reality. And if the reality you're creating right now is you need to be anything other than what you are right here, right now to have what you want to have, then you're always going to be chasing that thing. You'll always be chasing that dangling carrot instead of just fucking reaching out, grabbing it and going, this is my goddamn carrot. I get to live like this. I get to feel good about myself. I get to make messes. I get to clean them up. I get to learn, and that's okay. It's encouraged, please. I don't know if you guys do words for the year, but the word I chose is risk, because I'm still coming out of this perfectionism thing. And I realize, like, I take baby steps. I take tiny little baby steps when really I could just stand up and make a choice. So I'm choosing risk. I'm gonna find all those edges where I'm terrified, and I'm just gonna run right through them. And I'm gonna make messes in the process because it's new. I've never done this before. But guess what? I can trust myself to clean up my messes. When I spill milk, I know how to clean that shit up. And then it's like there was no milk there to begin with.
Wow.
I feel like that's how you go after any goal, because like at the end of the day, I keep having these realizations of like, yo, we get this like one life. Imagine living it being like, oh, what if I did this, or what if I did that, or, oh, I guess I could do that, but I'm not going to. Like, just go for it. And if it fails, go for something else. Like, there's no one right path that's going to take you to like this ultimate success you're seeking. Like, you just got to try shit out, see how it goes. Are you happy? Okay, cool. Run with that. Are you not happy? Okay, let's try something else. Like, so many people get stuck with before even starting these perfection tasks, they think their idea or their concept has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
And
just go.
This is really big in the fitness industry in general, is that people are using the excuse of perfectionism not to get started. And you literally just have to start. And I know you guys are probably tired of hearing that, but you literally just have to. You have to start messy. You have to start confused. You have to start not knowing what the fuck you're doing. Obviously, research is going to come along the way. Maybe you'll get a coach along the way. You'll start to understand macros, but you don't need to understand all of that before you get going. Because most likely there's going to be something along the way that still doesn't make sense. You still don't know. So you're never going to know everything before you get started. You're just using it as an excuse to stay where you're at. So if you're listening to this and there's something you want to do, there's a challenge that you want to do, there's a job that you want to go for, there's this guy that you think is really cute and you want to talk to at the gym, and you're trying to make sure you sound perfect, you look perfect, you say the right things, and the situation's right, the moon is in the right place, you're never going to do it.
No, you won't.
So just do it.
Or if you do, you're going to regret not doing it sooner. So just do it now. Like,
literally,
why are you waiting?
You're so right. And that's the thing, is like when people interview elderly people, the number one thing that these people say, that they regret not trying, they regret not doing this, they regret not talking to that one person. And my dad is really big in my life, and our lives have kind of like gone in the same route in a way. He's a business owner. I'm a business owner. He was a bodybuilder. I'm a bodybuilder. He tried out for acting, and that's where I want to go next. And the thing that my dad always tells me, and the reason that he's so proud of me, is because I did the things that he didn't do. And he always tells me, I wish I could have done these things, but I'm proud of you that you do them and you don't just stand still.
Dude, that's badass.
I love
so
that.
Just the elders have spoken. They almost always say, just do the things.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, the reason that you're stuck in a perfectionism loop and why your ego wants you to feel like you need to be perfect is because you've got unworthiness issues, mama. You do. You don't feel worthy of the thing that you actually want. That's why you're not showing up for yourself. Yeah. The loving thing to do is to give yourself permission to make messes and to do it imperfectly. What is it? Zach always likes to say, done is better than undone or undone perfectly. Something like that. You know, done is better than undone. That's just the facts.
It's true. There's this, when I was kind of researching things I wanted to talk about on this episode, I love New Girl. And I think Have
Me
you
too.
watched it?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, we both watched it. And there's this part where Jess gets fired and she's a teacher and she loves to teach. It's her passion. And she can't have money for rent. And she's like, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. I can't do this. I can't do that. And they're like, why haven't you gotten a job? And she's like, well, there's a lot that I need to do as my resume is concerned. I have a font. I have to pick spacing. I have to choose like what to add to it. And literally Nick looks at her and goes, just fix your resume, you ninny. And she's like, don't call me a ninny. And like, that's so silly. But if we really just piece it apart, is that her soul so badly knows she's supposed to be a teacher. And this is what she was put on this earth to do and how she's going to serve. But she's using these little things like my spacing needs to be right. My font needs to be correct in order to get her to make action.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes me think of that whole thing. Like if you were playing basketball and you're standing in front of the basket and it's not the best angle. If you shoot the shot, you might make it.
Yeah.
If you don't shoot the shot, you're definitely not going to make it.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Well, that's where that shoot your shot thing comes from.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I'm thinking about The Office now. I'm sorry. Where I think Michael Scott writes on a board, it's like you miss all of the shots that you don't take. And it says
Wayne Gretzky,
Michael Scott.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about. That's the theme.
It is, I mean, it's true. As
so
dumbed down as it is, it's true.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. I don't know. I don't want to derail where you might want to take this,
no.
but it feels really important to me. We're talking a lot about these concepts and these perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And I really always just like to make sure that I ground into, okay, well, how do you actually do this? Because if you think this is a great idea and then you're like, okay, but how do I get rid of this perfectionism? It's not like now that you've heard this podcast, you're just going to, all of a sudden it's going to be easy for you to show up the way you want to show up, right? You've got paradigms that you need to shift. You've got bad habits that you need to uncreate, new habits you need to create. It's no one at this table is telling you this is just so fucking easy that you can just all of a sudden shift. It's possible.
I'm telling you that I'm still in that loop. I have a lot of things I want to do that I'm pushing off because of perfectionism.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's totally possible. It is possible that you could just wake up and say, fuck this and be a completely different human the next morning. Yeah. And the likelihood and reality of that is not high. So I just want to give people like some things they can actually start
what are
practicing.
Some actionable things that people can take away from this? Because now they have the awareness that maybe this is something that they struggle with and it's holding them back. But like, what are the actionable steps to start moving forward and away from perfectionism?
Yeah, so I think I always like to start internally before we start moving out, because what we want to do is make sure that we're actually being honest with ourselves about what we want, because some of the things we're chasing, the reason we're not chasing them is because they're not actually for us.
It's because it's that girl who wants it.
Yeah,
it's not
like,
you.
Yeah, you think you need it, or someone told you did and you didn't really question it, or again, it's that you're externalizing your validation and you think if you have this thing or you are this person or you can write this on your Instagram, then now you're going to feel the way you want to feel. So what we really need to do is go internally first and be brutally honest with ourselves, like so wickedly honest about what do you actually truly want? What's your real desire? And people get scared of that because some of us have big, massive dreams. Some of us have this feeling inside of us that we're meant for more. And the whole idea that we might be is just terrifying in and of itself. So then the perfectionism comes in to make us feel like we're doing the thing when we're not doing the thing. Yeah. So I highly recommend doing a lot of introspection and journaling around what do I actually really want? If money weren't an object, if I didn't have to think or care about anybody else's opinion and success were guaranteed, if I knew I could make this happen, what would I create? What would I do? What would my life be? And let yourself move into that edge, because that can cause some anxiety. You might notice like some resistance to actually saying what you want. But if you can't even honor your own desires, you don't have a fuck all chance of actually creating them. So we have to start there. The most important reason to start there is because you really need to build a strong foundational why. Because what's going to happen is all of the things in your way of getting from point A to point B are going to show up on your path. And a lot of those things are going to be very real. Some of them may be very painful. They might be emotionally difficult, or mentally you might struggle to understand why it's happening and how to get through it. But if you stay deeply connected to your why, it's almost like you have, the star in the sky that you're constantly following. So as, things get confusing or difficult or tough, you come back to that place inside of you that's like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What is my why, right? That's something that we did for you to keep you present in your bodybuilding prep for that second prep was like, every day when you journal, you need to write down why the fuck you're doing this. And your why had nothing to do with the show or prep at all. Do you remember what your why was?
Not really.
Your why.
But it was to serve the women that listen.
Your why was so that you could show the women who follow you that they can do this too, that it's possible, right? So on the days when your ego and your perfectionism want to make you play small and want you to not get up and do the thing, or want you to procrastinate buying things to do the thing and not actually do the thing, or you hear somebody's judgment and you for a split second think maybe that's a good excuse to not show up, you can go back to that deeper why that's really true and resonates for you in your body. And then you can pour love on yourself and give yourself permission to have that. You're allowed to have that. You can have this why in your life.
Yeah.
And the why usually for most people is much greater than they think it is. And I think that's why we get scared, right? You wanting to serve women in this way and to show them what their power is, that's a big mission.
Like, qualifying for the 2023 Olympia isn't as big as impacting millions of women's lives all over the world. It's not. And that's really what's crazy is you're right. Sometimes our why has nothing to do with the goal that we have, but it's also confusing because it's like, okay, how can my why of wanting to serve millions of women and impact them to know their power, how is it connected to bodybuilding, taking pictures on social media, posting YouTube videos? It is because I'm vulnerable. I'm me. I'm showing them how to do things, maybe things that they don't know so that they can get to know that power within themselves. So really, this is one of the biggest things that she said on this entire podcast, because it's like you're in a well. And there's darkness all around you, just like we were talking about the shadow. And that's going to happen through your journey, whatever it might be, whatever you're trying to achieve, no matter how big or how small. There's going to be times where there's darkness that's surrounding you. And you need to just look up to the light and find your why, because that might be the only thing there that grounds you back down to, okay, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be fine.
Exactly. So once you have that, and it might not feel clear at first, it might be a little bit vague. And that's okay. Start where you are. Start where you are. And then from that point, you really want to get very clear about what is the next step I can take. And this is where we want to get grounded in reality, right? Because if you want to go, let's say somebody wanted to follow in your footsteps and be an influencer of some sort, and they have an account that has like 242 people in it. Okay, there's a lot of things that they could start doing to grow that influence. Where do you start? Literally anywhere. You can start anywhere. And the best place to start is the smallest step that you can take, right, in that direction. So maybe your first step is, well, I'm just going to post consistently. I'm going to do 5 days a week. I'm going to post consistently. I'm not going to really worry too much about what I'm posting. I'm just going to throw stuff out there so that I'm getting into a habit of posting, right? If that feels like you can do it and you're going to show up to it, don't put more on your plate. Do that. Do one thing at a time. Think about how you build a house brick by brick. Right? And you don't start from the top and work your way down. You start from the bottom and work your way up.
And this is just perfectionism, again, causing people to not make movement, because with the example of people wanting to either follow in the footsteps of what I do or what Kendall does, is that in the day and age now, people think that they have to have an Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. They have to do them all at the same time. They have to show up to all of them at the same time. And if they can't do that, then they might as well not do it at all. I started with 886 followers on my Instagram from high school friends. And I just focused on that one Instagram thing. And I'm really glad that I never did that thing where I added it on. But there was times where I really would look back and be like, well, she has a YouTube channel. Well, she's on TikTok, oh my God, she's big on Twitter. I need to do that. And if I don't do that, then I'm not doing it right. And that's dumb.
Yeah, it really is. It's not good. It's not good. So there's that, right? They're starting with what's in your heart. What does your soul really feel called to, right? And the big thing you want to do that for is because that's where you're supposed to be. What you want and what brings you joy is what you're here to do. We like to get in our heads about what our purpose is. Dude, it's very clear. Whatever lights you up and makes you feel good, that's part of your purpose. You're here to live and be you. So who are you? And go on that journey, right? So then we pick an action step that we're going to show up for. get an accountability buddy. Do not rely on just yourself to show up, because there are going to be dark days.
Don't look at me like that.
There's going to be confusing days, right? We all have to pass through these like gates of initiation as we're on our journey, because you don't just get to have things for nothing. There's always an energy exchange. And so you'll find places in your journey where there's a lot of ease and flow and you're on your game, and then you'll reach a growth edge. And that's where like there's tension and there's internal conflict and there's this question of maybe doubting yourself and if this is really where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing. And that's when you turn to your accountability buddy and you say, dude, I'm about to chicken out. I'm about to be a little bitch. You remind me who I am and you push me through this gate. Right?
Those are real friends too.
It's
I was
true.
listening to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about like calling each other out on their bullshit of, hey, if I said some they were talking about the Kanye stuff. They were like, if I said some out of pocket stuff, would you call me out? And the people around him were like, yeah, of course. And he was like, good. Like, you guys are real friends. You don't want to be surrounded by yes men when you're going on this journey of finding like out what you want to do or how to do it. Because then like, I don't know, that's just kind of fueling your procrastination and perfection complex.
There's no learning, there's no growth that goes there. And that is a really good relationship to have, is someone who really just tells you how it is. It's like the one thing that I'm trying to like think of is like for binge eating stuff. I knew that was that like pushback, because I was driving and I was fine. And then when it came to dealing with the binge eating stuff, it was like, skirt. And I was like, shit, I think I need help, but I don't want help, because if I get help, then I have to do the thing.
Yes.
And I don't know if I want to do the thing. So I was like, Zach, I need your help.
Yeah, exactly. And then once you got that help.
Yeah, it made it so much easier.
Yeah, well, and you had to go through a lot of discomfort being that vulnerable and admitting that you didn't have as much control over it as poised Julie would like to have and all that stuff. But I mean, would you rather still be stuck there or would you rather be here?
No, it literally it helps you fast track and collapse time on how long you want to spend the time doing things. I was talking to my binge eating support group, and one girl said, I heard this quote, I think you guys would really like it. And she goes, hit rock bottom as fast as you can. And I was like, ooh, I like that. And I think that's so true with so many different things. It's like, yeah, no one really wants to hit rock bottom, but the faster that you do and you fall on your face, then you're like, ooh, we did it.
It's a reality check.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you get into the humility of, oh, this is the reality. This is truth. When you hit rock bottom, a lot of times that's life forcing you to see what's actually real and present in front of you versus the perfection that you're living in your mind, right? It's so funny because like people, I used to show up like this too when I was telling you about I wasn't always able to speak in a way where people could hear me, right? I would speak in a much more abrasive way, a way that was easily taken to offense. And so I would get into these loops of just not speaking up at all. And that ended up obviously creating a lot of mayhem for me. And I ended up showing up exactly how I didn't want to show up. I didn't want to show up messy and like I was offensive and abrasive. And by getting so attached to what I didn't want to be, I ended up becoming that.
Yeah, because now you're overanalyzing every little thing that you do, and it's coming across probably even worse than you, quote unquote, think that it is. And it's like you're over filtering yourself, and then you're not you, and you're not the qualities that everybody loves in you, you know?
Right. So what I did to shift that was just go, you know what? I'm just going to be honest about what I'm going through right now, because it's that thing has too much control over me. I'm giving it too much power. So now if I'm feeling some kind of way and I don't know what to say, I just say, hey, I'm really struggling right now. I have no clue what to say. This may come out horribly wrong. Yeah. My intention is love and clarity right now. So just bear with me as I move through saying all this stupid crap that's probably really idiotic.
Yeah.
And when you do that, they'll meet you there.
Oh, they respond way better than you think that they do.
Yeah. Most people, when they see that, go, oh, thank God I'm not alone. I have this experience too. I'm also struggling with this.
And now you both have each other.
Yes. Now thank you for the permission that I get to also be human, right? And that's a huge part of what you guys do on your platform is give people permission to just be who they are on their own journey in their own way.
When we get any sort of message, like I had one yesterday and it was a long one and I was literally tearing up because she was saying how much I was helping her by talking about these things, but vice versa, talking about these things is helping me so much. So it's almost like this weird community of all just kind of elevating together and helping each other. And I think like that's the best part about like having any sort of platform is using your voice to create these discussions and help other people while helping yourself.
It's so true because like nobody relates to perfect.
Because it's not real. It's in our heads. It is an illusion. That's what I've been saying this whole time.
Yeah.
No one relates to it because it's not real. It's not a real human experience to be perfect. It's a concept. You will never be a concept because you are a living, breathing, sentient thing.
Yeah.
I had such a disconnect from my Instagram a few months ago, and I wrote a whole like paragraph caption about perfection because
That was a good one.
Yeah, thank
good.
you.
Really good.
And we had talked about it and talked to it with Kayla, who was on our podcast, about her being authentic. And I realized I wasn't being authentic on Instagram. I'm still not being authentic on Instagram. I'm trying, and I'm like slowly showing more of myself, doing more videos, being me. But I still hold myself to this standard of like trying to have the perfect picture, the perfect angle, the perfect filter on it, the perfect hair. And like, if my makeup's messed up, I go back to my camera. I'm like, fuck, I need to take it again. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, if we just put more of just me, then that perfection film that everyone sees is lowered because I'm creating unrealistic standards for myself. I'm not even looking at other girls' pages. I'm looking at me in real life, standing here with my acne and like sometimes cellulite or whatever it is. And then I'm looking at me perfect on Instagram and being like, that's not me. I have such a mental disconnect from myself.
Wow, that's powerful, Kendall. I'm glad you shared that.
Well, thank you.
You're doing it to yourself.
But it took me a long time to realize like, oh shit, like I'm the fake perfect that I'm chasing.
Yes.
You're like, wait, I set these standards.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that other people set them, but I set them. Crap.
And it makes me feel bad because then I'm setting that for the people that follow me.
That makes
And
sense.
I'm like, hey, a reminder, like I am clearly like sucking in and twisting in that photo. And like, it's hard to remember that when you're just looking at photos all day.
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful perspective.
So I just kind of wanted to recap the like action steps that Liv was talking about. So it was number 1, and you were being like, really get clear on what you want
Yeah. Out of
and
your
like
life.
why you want it, and make sure that it's not coming from anywhere else and it's really coming from you.
Yes. And if you get to that place, because a lot of times women who I coach, I'll ask them what they want and they go, I don't know. That's okay. Then now you have a question to answer.
Now you have a task.
Now you have a journey to go on. You have exploration to do. And if you've never really sat with and focused on what you really want, that's exciting because now there's this whole space in your life where there were no possibilities, and now there's only infinite possibilities, right? So it's really exciting sometimes when we get to an I don't know, because then, now I get to find out. So get very clear on what you want to experience, right? And then ground that in a why statement. I'm choosing to show up in this way so that I can create whatever that is, right? Then find someone you love and trust. And if you don't have anyone that you feel is in your corner, this is where people get coaches. I highly recommend finding a group or a coach, someone that will hold you in that, so you can speak your intention out loud and be held to it by other selves, because we all need other selves.
I want to add, before I had anyone I felt I could share the whole fitness goals and my whys with, Instagram was that for me. Like, you can just make like your platform, or make a separate Instagram if you want, so that you're at least putting it out into the universe if you don't have that one person that you want to or can talk to.
Yeah, I have actually done that before, where I've been like, if I say this on my Instagram, now I have to do it because I put it online.
That's literally my entire life. Exactly. Entire life. I have to put it on Instagram because it's a very clear sign that I'm like, okay, I'm having trouble showing up for this thing. So if I put it on Instagram, I have to.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm doing 75 hard because I was struggling with like motivation and wanting to keep going at fitness in general. And I was like, fine, I'm telling people I'm doing 75 hard, and that's a trigger for me. It might not be the same for everyone else, but it triggers me to, okay, shape the fuck up.
Yes. No, I love that. Exactly. Right. So now you have an accountability buddy, whatever that looks like. And then I didn't get to this part, but this part's pretty crucial. You need to establish some form of routine in your life for grounding purposes. It's so easy as circumstances in life change to get blown off of center. And so the point of a routine isn't to like be rigid and keep you stuck and like make you wrong if you don't do it right. It's to keep you grounded so that as the cycle of the day loops back around, you have a place to come back to center, and you're getting your energy right. You're getting yourself in alignment. You're reconnecting to your why. You're reconnecting to your affirmations. You're pouring love on yourself so that you're starting your morning routines are more important than nighttime routines, in my opinion, because if you start your day on that foot and you start your day with intention, the likelihood that you show up in those intentions, even if the boat is rocky and there's a storm that day, so much higher. So I was actually going to suggest, if you have not bought that Know Your Power journal, buy that thing. That's such a good place to start. The structure's in there for you. All you have to do is show up and fill the damn thing out.
Also, side note, Liv designed the entire book.
I sure did.
She did. It's
I didn't know
cute.
that.
We'll have it linked in the description.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend. And you don't have to start with the Know Your Power Journal. I just if you're just struggling and you haven't taken any steps, like give yourself some slack. Yeah. Don't feel like you need to come up with some like Adia Shanti Kumbaya morning routine that's like, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I da-da-da-da-da. Start small. Make your bed every morning. Go through the same process every morning. You make your bed, you brush your teeth, maybe you go get yourself some coffee, you stretch, you do Know Your Power Journal, and then you move into your day.
Yeah. Even if it's like that's probably 10 minutes.
10 to
it doesn't
20,
need to look like that girl on Instagram who does 1,000,001 things back to back to back, because her life's different than yours and your life is different than hers. And that's just going back to the perfectionism thing, that yours is going to be yours.
Yes.
For whatever circumstances that you have.
Yeah. I also really strongly suggest examine your relationship with technology, especially your phone. Mm. I don't know how seriously people take this, but those things are designed to keep you addicted to them because they're designed to help companies make money. Yeah. Now that I don't want to demonize phones, I don't want to make them wrong, I don't want to make social wrong. I think it's how you use it. But we let these things use us. So if you are someone who wakes up and you start your day on your phone, you're fucking up already. I'm telling you right that, because you're not starting with your truth and your voice. You're consuming right out the gate. Mm-hmm. The opposite of creation is consumption.
Yeah. You're letting emails, work, social media, other people's pictures control your day instead of you controlling your day.
Yes, you're reacting to the world immediately when you wake up. So if there is one thing I highly, highly recommend in your morning routine, start it in silence. Now, if you have a partner or like kids, like I don't mean don't talk to them, but don't turn stimulus on and immediately start stimulating your brain to react to the world outside of you. Mm-hmm. Start your day inside you, come from your center, then work your way out.
Yeah, and that's huge. Like, just like you said, what's the very next step? Start with getting off your fucking phone.
I'm telling you, you will solve perfectionism by showing up and doing literally anything consistently. Mm-hmm. So what is the smallest thing you can show up to consistently? I literally at one point started with making my bed, and that was all I did. Mm-hmm. But once that became a habit, like now I have to even make the bed at Airbnbs and hotels, because it's just, my morning doesn't feel right if I don't do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it automatically puts me in a space of I'm being intentional. I'm setting things up the way that I like them. And then, I have to look forward, getting into a nice, neat bed at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So if that's all you feel like you can show up to right now, just do that. Yeah. There's no step too small as long as you're moving forward. It's better than the inertia of sitting in the mediocrity and complacency. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like yesterday you didn't make your bed, but today you made your bed. Yesterday you checked your phone immediately when you rolled over, and then today you didn't check your phone. Like, those seem small because you're not mixing your greens, reading your journal, writing, going on a walk. It's like, oh, if I'm not doing all those things, it doesn't matter. But the small things matter because they build your confidence up to be able to handle more and more and more. Yes. And then you're doing them and you're like, shit, I'm doing it all.
I was going to say, work on being imperfect in those moments too. Do your pillows need to be perfectly fluffed and aligned in the alphabetical order?
I'm going to say
if you're
they
Julia,
do.
yes. But like, those are little steps that you can be like, okay, I did this. It's not as perfect as possible. I didn't spend an hour doing it, but I did it. Like, that's an accomplishment.
Yes, exactly. So just remember, you were a baby once. You couldn't do literally anything. Look at all the shit you can do now. And that happened one step at a time, brick by brick. That's just how life works. You can try to bypass that all you want, but it's the fucking facts.
You can't bypass what's supposed to happen. That's the thing. Like, we do all want to bypass the journey. We just want to jump and get there. But every time that I've tried to jump to get to that thing, I either mess up, have to go back and backtrack. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I should have just done that thing.
Yeah. And more importantly, to loop back to what Kendall said, and you repeated this too, the end means nothing without the journey. It has no meaning.
Literally.
Absolutely none. So, give yourself the benefit of having a meaningful life and getting to the end of it and being like, look at all this shit I pushed through. Look at how much I overcame. Look how much I allowed myself to be strong and to be vulnerable and to be powerful. Fuck yes. I can die in peace now.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
Love it.
Well, since we already asked you our guest's question last time, we asked all of our guests, when did you know that you were powerful? Like, what was that moment? We already asked Liv that on the last podcast, so go listen to it. I wanted to do rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I have 5, and just answer them as quickly as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect, obviously.
Okay, excellent.
Can be messy. So
I'll demonstrate here in front of everybody.
Here's a demonstration of non-perfectionism. So question number 1. When do you feel the most connected to the universe?
When I'm having sex.
Wow!
Yeah.
I could have said that.
Number 2, what took you the longest to learn?
How to love myself and not be a total bitch to myself when I fail.
Love it. What's the one thing every woman should hear?
I love you. You're perfect the way that you are.
Aww.
What do you feel is your most powerful quality?
My transparency and vulnerability.
What's something that you're currently working on in your inner world?
Oh God, what am I not working on in my inner world? I would say the big thing I'm really working on right now is that risk thing, finding my edges, because it's really easy for my ego to convince me that I'm taking risks when I'm not. So I'm really looking at the honesty of where my fear edges actually are and running headfirst into them.
I loved all your answers, honestly.
So good, guys. Well, you guys know that in the description, we're going to have all the information on how you can get connected with Liv. She does so many incredible things like we mentioned in the intro. But thank you so much for being another guest. You're the only person who's been a repeat.
Oh,
Yes.
thanks. I love being on the show. I love you guys.
Yes.
I love your message. And all the women who have listened to your show and come to me as a direct result have been fucking amazing. So you've got a really solid audience.
Yeah,
They're pretty
I mean, we
fucking
already
awesome.
knew that, but
Y'all are freaking awesome. So please get connected with Liv. Send her a message. Tell her how much this meant to you or what you learned from it. And as always, guys, we love you all so much and you are more powerful than you think.
bye.